Namaskar and welcome to ISSF Samvaad, a show where we invite the best and the brightest minds to discuss and deliberate on topics related to international relations and geopolitics. On today's episode, we have a very special guest with us, Ambassador Anil Trigunayat. Ambassador Anil Trigunayat has served India for over 33 years as an Indian Foreign Service officer. He was our ambassador to Jordan, Libya, and Malta. It was during Ambassador Trigunayat's time in Libya that the popular uprising broke out, and Ambassador Trigunayat was instrumental in planning the operation to bring back the stranded Indian workers. Post his superannuation, Ambassador Trigunayat has been the president of the MII-CCIA Chamber of Commerce. He is also the distinguished fellow with the prestigious Vivekanand International Foundation. He is also the member of the International Trade Council, and he sits on the board of various think tanks and organizations. Today, Ambassador Trigunayat joins us to discuss his new book, The Evolving Security Dynamics in West Asia and India's Challenges. Sir, namaskar, and what an honor it is to have you among us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much for your time, sir. Sir, we'll begin our question answer session. And it will be a fitting tribute to you if we start with Libya and Iraq. Considering your heroics in Libya, sir, almost a decade has passed since Gaddafi was shot dead near his hometown, and more than 15 years has passed since the Saddam Hussein was hanged. So, do you think Libya and Iraq, they are better off with these two leaders, or they are now regretting that decision to dispose them?
Well, as you know that both Saddam Hussein and Colonel Gaddafi were the autocrats. But one good thing both of them had was that they did not allow terrorism to prosper in the countries that they were there, right, in Iraq or Libya. And Gaddafi was often referring to, and I remember that once he's gone, the country will suffer from this kind of instability, as well as the militia wars and the extremism and other things, right? This is precisely what has happened. Unfortunate part of external interventions, which India has never supported in any case, any scenario, unless it is authorized by the United Nations fully and properly, and not misused as it was done in the case of Libya, and earlier in the case of Iraq. There was an arbitrary and unilateral interventions by the Americans and the NATO forces. There are many reasons for that. The country today, or rather for the last whole decade, has been in complete mess, and it is continuing to remain so for many reasons. The first reason, nobody was against the Arab Spring in the region. Everybody thought that the time has come that the people themselves, their aspirations, the political aspirations, economic aspirations, must get the wind, that they should be able to participate in the development of their countries, as they call Libya of their dreams, or the new Libya, which the revolution that they started. Unfortunately, after the Tunisian, which was the only virtually peaceful revolution that happened, all other places we have seen that there has been a major problem. And Gaddafi was a very strong man who was trying to create his own alternative dinar. He was trying to encash his oil and gas reserves. He wanted to be the leader of Africa and the Arab world. So obviously he was giving certain threats to the established Western systems. And unfortunately, he was killed when he trusted the Western leaders the most. He became friends with Sarkozy. He became friends with the Italian Prime Minister, the British Prime Minister, and had some kind of understanding with the Americans also. It was at that time that he thought that he was stabbed in the back by them, not that he was any saint or he was not doing anything. It caused, and what happened is that Americans, in my view, in the beginning, were not very keen on intervening. But because France had already started going on its own and could not sustain the warfare, when eventually NATO had to intervene, and they manipulated the UN Security Council resolution, as you know, on which India, Russia, and China had abstained, and so did Germany. Now, this is in that kind of a situation. What they did was that these countries just bombed him out, right? But they did not have any reconstruction plan, any how to bring democracy about in a country which is mostly tribal in nature. How to adjust the Westminster kind of principles cannot apply there. So they made big mistakes. So the country was divided into virtually two camps. The one camp was the France on one side, the British on the one side, the Saudis, the Qataris, and the UAE, who started together to fight against Gaddafi. Eventually, what they did was they got divided into two camps themselves, two groups. So today, what is there and continues? Turkey, Qatar, and Italy on the one side, and France, Russia, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and the USA in between here and there has been on the two sides. And therefore, we are facing this major problem because they are supporting a group which is based in Tripoli. The other one is supporting the other group which is based with and led by General Haftar in the east of Libya. Can you imagine? There are two parliaments, there are two prime ministers, and there are warlords and the militia groups. There are both prime ministers. One does not want to leave the elections. I've been there in 2012 when the first elections were held. There was no security whatsoever. In fact, not worth the name. Despite that, the people were very enthusiastic, and they voted. And I visited booths here all over, and I can tell you that this was one of the finest elections any country could have held, provided there was a plan. There were some institutions. The Western countries who took pride in removing Gaddafi did not know what to do thereafter. They were not really either convinced about the way forward, nor were they invested in that. And today, everybody is suffering. Today, the Western countries are more interested in Libya containing because A, they want the oil and gas supplies to continue. Secondly, what they want that there should be no immigration into Europe from that. So these are the two major objectives that these countries have been engaged in. Then Turkey, of course, has become a powerful player on the side of the Tripoli government.
Right, sir. Sir, if you'll see in Iraq, sir, the security situation has deteriorated a lot in recent months. Sir, could you briefly explain to our viewers what led to this situation and your analysis on how it will go forward?
You know that Iraq again is a very similar situation. Iraq also, as I said earlier, was probably the only country which was broadly secular, I would say, during Saddam Hussein time. He was a cruel leader, no doubt. But the way he was removed, the way the invasion was done, it was by manufacturing the evidence, of the WMDs or weapons of mass destructions, as they call them. This was manufactured. There was nothing existed, frankly. But they wanted to remove him for one bush to another bush, and they ambushed the whole country in that sense. And then we saw what happened, that how the most fundamentalist and the rabid ultra-terrorist group in the ISIS came about, or ISIL as they call it. And we have seen that problem has continued even till today. It has expanded all over, including in our neighborhood in Afghanistan, and also they are said to be present in India. Now, what happened is that after the removal of Saddam Hussein, and when they tried to create a new kind of polity, the confessional kind of a system was brought about, in which that the president will belong from Kurdish parties or Kurdish groups, the speaker of the parliament will be a Sunni, and the prime minister will be a Shia. Now, Shia means, that the Iran and Iraq also had a war between themselves. And in my view, the Americans really gave Iraq on a platter to Iran, right? And whereas there was a problem. So now there are certain groups which are pro-Iran, most of them, including Popular Mobilization Forces, PMFs as they called, various religious groups which are there, Sistani and Hari, and of course Sadr is a very famous leader who just recently we saw the problems. So when the elections are held, there is no majority, frankly, for any political party. It came out, and so what happened is the Sadr earlier was a kingmaker, whether it was Nur Maliki or others. But then eventually he thought that why should I only make the kings? I should become the king myself. So he wanted to be the prime minister or the leader. So it did not happen because they could not muster enough support. The pro-Iranian groups were not supporting them, so they did not have the adequate numbers. They had 73 MPs. And so when they got very frustrated with that, those people decided to resign from the parliament. Once they decided to resign, the strength of the other Shia group increased automatically, who had significantly lost in the election, who were the pro-Iranian groups. So now, by default, the pro-Iranian groups have become stronger. And therefore, what we see today is that there is no semblance of an agreement, although we know that this pro-Iranian group has proposed the name of one of the persons as the next prime minister, and there'll be a voting. But Sadrist group, and Sadr finally, because their religious leaders also need the sanctity and the sanction of the senior religious leaders. So when their Hari, who's the senior leader, he said that my supporters must look towards Khamenei of Iran for guidance, right? So then he obviously lost that credibility himself, but on the ground he remains very, very strong. His contribution will be immense whenever stability is to arise. Now, it's a rich country, as you know, oil-rich country. So therefore, Americans are there. Now, Sadr was also against the American forces' presence in Iraq. They wanted the forces to leave. Then the Turkey also has been against the Kurds, and there have been fights going on. So again, here we see the external elements as well as the internal religious problems that have brought about this kind of situation. And a country that could be a prosperous country in no time, both these, Iraq and Libya, are still continuing to suffer. And people are very much frustrated. They have been protesting on the streets since 2019. Pandemic had terrible impact on everybody. There is no electricity. People are not able to pay. Cost of has risen. And, so this is a very peculiar mismanagement problem, which is combined with the religious differences and acute lack of any planning or sincerity on the part of the leaders.
Right, sir. Sir, we'll stick to the region, and I'll ask a question regarding the assassination of Commander Soleimani. Sir, President Trump, he went in and he ordered the drone strike on President Soleimani, on Commander Soleimani. So do you think this has contributed towards stability, more stability of the region, or it has made the region less stable?
Well, as you know, the General Soleimani was the IRGC general of Iran, and he was going to meet the Iraqi Prime Minister when there was a drone strike, and he, along with two other Iraqi leaders, was killed in this. Now, obviously, the Americans thought that by removing him, they will be taking some kind of revenge, and on this. And Trump basically did a great disservice to the region in that sense of the term, even though he did achieve greatly that Abraham Accords and other things, positively bringing the Israelis and the Arabs closer, Sunni Arabs especially. But at the same time, we have seen that Iran, the Iran nuclear deal, which was not the perfect deal, but at the same time, it was, capping the Iranian ambitions to become a nuclear power to a great extent since 2015 during the Obama era. But Trump had, during his campaign, also said that he will squash the deal in case he came to power, and that's precisely what he did. So, coming to your question, we nearly came to a war in the Middle East, during that time. So, it did not lead to any stability. It has led to instability, and the nuclear deal, they are still continuing to discuss. It is not yet finalized. despite the fact that Russia-Ukraine crisis had created such a major energy security problem in the world.
Right, sir. Sir, you very rightly mentioned that we nearly came to a war. However, sir, if you'll see Commander Soleimani, General Soleimani, he was virtually the number two in the Iranian establishment. So, why Iran has not responded in kind to this assassination? In your views?
Well, they said that they will attack, but as you know, that there were about 22 missiles were fired at the American bases immediately after that, and Americans say that there have been attacks on Pompeo and others, or were planned by some Iranian groups. So these are done clandestine manner. Iran also did not wish to take the Americans directly, on for that matter, but it does not want US to stay in the region, and that's what it is trying to work, that the non-regional powers really in that sense have no place. So this is continuing. So that's why now Iran is also a significant power, a big oil producer. The country also have influence among various Arab countries, as we know, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and it has its non-state actors, which are called Houthis, whether it is Houthis or in Yemen, or it is the Hamas in Gaza, or Hezbollah in Syria and Lebanon. So it has a much greater outreach. Apart from the Shia-Sunni fight, there is of course a geo-economic contestation. It is a problem between Iran and Israel. We know that, and that has been continuing together. So I think that this Soleimani was number two. He was very widely respected in Iran, and the Shias all over mourned his death. The Iranians vowed to take revenge, and they apparently tried to take some revenge somewhere, but not in a very foolish manner.
Right, sir. Sir, we'll shift our focus to the Arabian Peninsula. Sir, Yemen, the war in Yemen, sir, it is not going to stop as it seems. We have on one side, sir, Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates and the led forces. And so they have $100 billion budget. They have the state of the art technologies, and they have the state of the art weapons. On the other side, on the Yemeni side, sir, we have the ragtag bands of militias in the Houthis who are just not ready to give up. So, according to you, do you think the Houthis are essentially going to hold on, or do you think the Saudis are going to win, or we are going to reach a sort of a compromise in the near future?
Let me tell you something very interesting is that I've been mulling over it. That none of the superpowers, for example, be it China, be it USA, or be it Russia, have won a single war in the 20th and 21st century. They have lost all the wars, right? So having a big power, firepower, cannot ensure victory in a war. We are seeing what is Russia, Ukraine also, you are witnessing now. So it has been happening in Afghanistan, where US had to leave like run away virtually. From Vietnam, they had to leave. Soviets had to leave from Afghanistan. We have seen China lost in Vietnam. So that is one question. So even if you are all the Sunni forces, the 15 countries who got together, started bombing Yemen, it happened for two reasons. Number one, of course, the leaders, what was happening in Yemen, there was Al Qaeda for Arab Peninsula, which was present there. So that became, but terrorism, these terrorist groups were also earlier supported by many of these regimes in the region. Different kinds of non-state actors were supported by them. So it is not that they came out of the air. And then they were on the border of Saudi Arabia and Yemen, and that's when they started. But basically, it started off why? Because at that time, if you come to think of it, when Obama was discussing this nuclear deal with Iran, at that time, the Saudis felt very neglected, and they thought that they were being shortchanged, because they thought by this, Iran will become far more stronger. So they took exactly similar position as the Israelis. They were also against this nuclear deal, but Obama was hell-bent on doing it. Then Trump squashed it, and Biden is trying to revive it. Now, in that sense, the Yemen problem is that it gives you an indirect handle to Iran to support them against the Saudis and the Sunni band, and that's precisely what has been going on. But who will win is difficult because right now there's a ceasefire that has been extended. It is the worst war which has created a huge humanitarian crisis. This is a place where we are seeing the low-key war. The UAE is already disengaged from this war. I mean, 2-3 years ago, they decided not to continue with this. But because of the kind of drones and the missiles and the projectiles the Houthis have been able to do, they are the ones that are able to attack the Saudi installations near Riyadh, Jeddah, and even near Abu Dhabi, in which one Indian was also killed. So I think that the guerrilla warfare, or so to say, these kind of non-state actors. So there has to be some kind of I would say through a dialogue which is happening now with the help of Oman. Iran is also ready to bring about this dialogue because we are seeing that Iran and Saudi Arabia are discussing normalization of relations. So did UAE. So I think at this moment it is possible that there could be some solution to the Yemeni crisis, but in which the Houthis will be a party.
Right, sir. Sir, we will stick to the Arabian Peninsula only. Sir, we would like to know your analysis of Mohammed bin Salman. Sir, some of people, they have told that he is a reformer who will take Saudi Arabia into the 21st century. Some of them, mainly the Western experts, they have labeled him as a psychopath after the Jamal Khashoggi incident. So, according to you, is he a reformer? Is he a psychopath, or is he something else?
Well, I think he is the future king of Saudi Arabia. That is very simple, as simple as that. There is no doubt that he has a vision for his country, a vision of a reformed country. Most of these Gulf countries, which are oil rich, are realizing that oil and gas are fungible assets, a maximum of 60 to 70, 80 years. And climate change has brought a greater focus on these resources further. So they have realized that they cannot continue to have the same kind of revenue forever through this. So they're diversifying their economy, for which you require reforms. Economic reforms are necessary. Social reforms have been missing. The women had no right, as you know, in the country. It was highly religious, and rightly so, because they are the custodian of two holy mosques, and for the Sunni Muslims and for the Muslims, it's a leader in the world, Saudi Arabia, or the king of Saudi Arabia. So they get that religious authority in that sense. Secondly, we have seen that the Arab Spring, which started in 2010-11, had impacted these countries in a very different way. They were under a lot of stress because these monarchies, so to say, or the leaders did not have the real connect with the people. So in order to do that, they used doles. They started funding their people, providing them various sort of gifts or whatnot, so that they get pacified. But at the same time, these leaders realized that business as usual cannot continue. They have to reform. And Mohammed bin Salman is a young man driven by that kind of a desire for retaining his country's primacy in the region. And I find that he has brought about these reforms. Of course, the Khashoggi murder, they do not like criticism, open criticism. This is a fact. And it has happened not only in Saudi Arabia, but many other countries. But today on the ground, and I have been there several times, I can tell you that things are changing, and changing for the better. Now they are coming up with the Neom City. Their film actors go there. The big thing, which were unimaginable in Saudi Arabia. They were happening in the UAE forever, but in Saudi Arabia, it was not possible. Today, Qatar is doing the FIFA World Cup, and they have brought all kinds of people from all over. This is the biggest thing one can do, a small country. And they are even allowing the liquor to be served before and after the games. So there is a great change which is taking place. And in Saudi Arabia, I would say that if their vision succeeds, then it will be good. But whether he has these, I would say, autocratic streaks, I think when you are a king or when you are a strong leader, then when you know that you are all in all a control, and you have to be, strong in your execution as well. But excesses, human rights violations, all those are being flagged from time to time.
Right, sir. Sir, as part of Mohammed bin Salman's reform, we have been seeing a very interesting phenomena, and that is the de-Islamization and the de-Arabization of the Arabian Peninsula. So the last time this thing happened, we had the siege of Mecca, and today, sir, they are changing the religious texts, which is state sponsored. You can find pork and alcohol in UAE, in all the Emirates. So, do you think this kind of change is sustainable, considering the fact that a lot of extremist elements still operate within the Arab society?
Well, there is no doubt that there is a conservative element, and there are these groups that you mentioned, which are very much present in the society. But they are becoming, I would not say marginalized, but they are less influential, which shows that whenever there is a transition in the societal phases, there is definitely some kind of a friction, and that friction is unavoidable. So you have a group of people who want to continue to remain as rigid as possible or conservative as possible. Then you have women, which constitute about 50%, who want their freedom, right? And they want to now, after so many years, it was only a couple of years ago that the women have started, playing football, or for that matter, driving a vehicle in Saudi Arabia. So this is something which is happening. Of course, there are certain religious, I would say, symbols or red lines, which will be, I think, will be difficult to sustain, because that is very fundamental to the Islamic or Muslim psyche.
Right, sir. Sir, in a way, sir, I think this is a positive. This will leave a positive impact on the Indo-Arab relations. What do you think?
Well, frankly, as you know, when Prime Minister Modi had gone there to Saudi Arabia, one of the places he visited was a computer center that India had set up. Where it was all women computer center, and the women were chanting, "Welcome Modi, welcome Modi," and all of them were coming and talking. When I visited Saudi Arabia in 2018-19, at that time, I met a lot of women entrepreneurs, businesswomen, and they were talking like their male colleagues. So there was no difference. They are in Qatar, I have seen, in UAE, I have seen, they are everywhere. There are several ministers. So they're strong in that sense. And so once you unleash that power, then it happens. As far as India relations are concerned, I must say that since 2008, 10 onwards, I would say 8 onwards, right, we can say 12 years. When we first time started, I was involved in that, taking Indian Prime Minister, at that time it used to be Manmohan Singh, to Oman, Qatar, and to Saudi Arabia, and then the vice presidents elsewhere and all this. So we had not had any visits for decades to the nearest region, which is our extended neighborhood, which is extremely strong. The reason was that we thought that they were very close to Pakistan and Islamic factor. We are the third largest Muslim nation in the world. So we have not used that or leveraged that with the Arab world. We should have done it long ago, so that Pakistan could not have run away with that title that they are. But at the same time, now it has changed. These countries, due to the economic reforms, due to the realities of the on ground, due to the pandemic impact, have decided that they need to look at the Indian business opportunity, because India is far too important for nearly every country in the world. And therefore, we are seeing the big opportunity, trillions of dollars of opportunity, in which the Gulf countries want to do that. Earlier, we used to buy the oil, and we used to pay for it. We have our diaspora, 8 million, 9 million people who are sending some 50, $60 billion to India. And it was a good thing. But at the same time, this was transactional relationship. Today, especially under Prime Minister Modi, I would say, and I always, without any reservation, I say that among all his foreign policy initiatives, the most successful or important one has been the Act West policy, where our relations with all the countries in the Middle East have greatly improved. And today, it is more of a strategic partnership with these countries. Of course, the world has changed as well, but our relationship, I would say, whether it's the Arab world, whether it's with Israel, whether it's with Iran, whether it is with the rest of the Egypt or others, I mean, this is going on smoothly. There will always be some relations which will be more sweeter than the other, but at the same time, I see that it is mutually beneficial, and that's what their investments are coming into India a big way. Politically, strategically, they look to India, even as a security provider, as a trusted interlocutor. And in all those senses, we see that this is happening rather well.
Right, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Sir, now we'll shift our focus to Turkey. Sir, if I am not wrong to state this, but Erdogan, sir, he's a wannabe caliph. He wants to create a new, greater caliphate of Turkey. So, do you think he will be successful in that? What is your analysis of Erdogan?
Well, there are three things which are happening in the region. And there are, number one, there's a geopolitical competition. There is a geo-religious competition, and there is geo-economic competition, apart from the intra-regional rivalries and other competitions that are happening. Now, in the last few years, we have seen, especially since the Arab Spring, that Iraq, which is a NATO member and has very strong and a successful, good army, has been exercising or militarizing its foreign policy in different domains, which it considers. And it is said that President Erdogan, especially, because it was the country when we know Mustafa Kemal Pasha, what kind of a country he wanted. But now we see that there is a greater, greater quest for Islamic leadership as well. And in the neo-Ottomanic sense, which you said caliph, but wanted to become a caliph for. So for a leader of the Islamic world, supporting political Islam, the Muslim Brotherhood and others, especially which was banned entities in many countries, especially the Sunni or monarchies. But that brings them directly in competition with the Saudis, who are the leaders of Sunni world, Islamic world, and Shias in Iran. And so this competition is going on. But I think that just in recent times, and there was bad relations they had with Saudi Arabia and with Egypt, with several other countries. But in the last few months, we have seen that Turkey has realized the limitations. And it has started, while representing its viewpoint, what it has started having a sort of a rapprochement with various countries due to economic reasons and also strategic reasons. Now it has a problem with Russia, but it continues to have good friendship with Russia, also Putin and Erdogan. They have been both trying to stabilize Armenia and Azerbaijan. They are also in Central Asia working together with China, with other countries. So what we see in Turkey today is several things. They want to be a maritime power. They have a problem with Greece, historic problem in Cyprus. And with Israel, they are resolving their issues. Now UAE is going to invest about $10 billion. So would Saudi, and they are close to Qatar, a lot of Qatari investments in Turkey. So right now they are driven more by the economic requirements because see they have a problem. Their currency lira, Turkish lira, is going haywire. Their inflation is high. Economy is not doing that greatly. He has elections next year. So I think that all these pointers made him more sensible, and he has started creating lesser conflict-prone foreign policy. But with his neighbors, the Syria, Iraq, or for that matter, in Lebanon or in the in Palestine, we are seeing that conflicts have continued to in some degree or the other. So successful in the becoming a Khalif, I don't think so.
Right, sir. Sir, moving our focus to the Indo-Turkish relations. Sir, Turkey was never a friendly country towards us. It was always a hostile state because of its closeness to Pakistan. But
Mhm.
sir, in the last few years, they have really upped the ante, and now they are making a trifecta of Azerbaijan, Pakistan, and Turkey. So, do you think Turkey can spoil India's game in the region and closer to our border?
Well, like you know that yesterday when Prime Minister Modi was in Uzbekistan in Samarkand, he had a meeting with Erdogan, and they discussed all the issues of the bilateral, how to enhance the bilateral relationship. Because see, Erdogan has realized the limitations of that kind of a policy that they've been following. They are no doubt close to Pakistan, but India has, even pre-independence, Mahatma Gandhi supported the Khilafat movement, as you know, and we have been supportive of them. The Sufi Islam is the common factor between India and Turkey. The tourism and the trade and economic relations are vibrant between the two countries. Indian film actors are very popular in Turkey, and so are the Turkish serials in India. So P2P level, things are moving on smoothly. Geostrategically, for whatever reason, I mean, I think that Pakistanis have been able to encash their nuisance value with many countries, including with Turkey, and that continues till date. But they have realized now that Pakistan is a failing economy, a failing polity, and a failing state. So there is a limitation to which they can do that. So this is why I think that there is a greater I think the realization in the Turkish leadership that better relations with India, less uh, unnecessary cacophony over Kashmir and Article 370 or condition of Islam or Muslims in India is not serving neither them nor India or nor anybody else, because they are not based on the right foundations. They are just created for the heck of it, you know. So I think that uh, they'll be a bit slow to move, but from yesterday's meeting, I can say that there is some sensibility, and we have seen in very couple of months before, and we'll watch again in September when he speaks at the UNGA, whether again he raises that issue or not.
Right, sir. Sir, I think it is time to move on to our final region, and that is Afghanistan. Sir, almost a year has passed since Taliban took over the reins. So, what is your analysis of this 1 year? How do you rate the Taliban-led government?
Well, the problem with Taliban-led government is that they don't know governance, number one. Number two, they don't want to change. And the Americans are the cause of it, because see, they say that they don't recognize the government, but when they had signed a Doha agreement with them in 2020, it was very clear that they were passing on the power to them. So you may say that we are not diplomatically recognizing it, but de facto you have recognized because you've signed an agreement with them. Now, if you start believing that Taliban will start respecting the women and making them have freedom everywhere, or will let the children study and all, I mean, you are living in a fool's paradise. They have never said it. It is only that the Western countries or the other democracies believed that they will do it, right? Because the 20 years what they have done. But what I find is that uh, the Taliban have a problem. Plus, let us look at it. Taliban is not a monolith. Taliban is many things. It's a spectrum of various kind of people. There are people who are very soft. They are the ones whose faces we have seen during discussions. But those people are no longer in the government. Then you have the radical types. Then you have the ones who are like a Kani group and others, which are supported by Rawalpindi gang. You know, supported, brought up by Pakistanis, and they are the ones who are controlling Kabul now. We have seen the two Russian diplomats were killed just a few days ago. So, but the Taliban, you can say that even though they have come into power, Most of the people were made to run. They left the country. You don't have the expertise available to run the government. Plus, their own very rigid policies have not given them something. But we must remember the Taliban is here to wanting to be there. The only thing they have said is that they are not interested in exporting terror or allowing terror groups to operate or against third countries. But they have no control over ISKP or Al Qaeda or who are present in all the 15 republics, states there. So the terror groups are operating. A lot of Pakistani terror groups are operating from there, Jaish-e-Mohammed. So they are not organized in that sense. Plus, internally, they have a problem of legitimacy because, see, ISKP or ISIS, their role is global jihad and global caliphate, Amir, Islamic Emirate. But their Islamic Emirate is confined to only Afghanistan and not going beyond. So that is something that we need to be careful when we are understanding it. Secondly, the Americans banks had about $9 billion which was owed to them. That money has not been provided to them. Similarly, India has again provided assistance. Now we also have an embassy there. Some other countries have also provided them assistance. But the people have suffered in the bargain. Whoever is ruling them, that's a different thing. But at the same time, the average Afghan has suffered a great deal in this bargain. And we just hope that before the winters come, there is some kind of an instability. And that $9 billion I was just telling you about, this was the money lying in the American banks. Now, America refused to release it to the Taliban. Why? Because they said that it was the money which was meant for, the victims of 9/11. Now, imagine 20 years you are ruling that country. You could have used that money at the time. You would not do that. But when Taliban is in power, not towing your line, you start using these kind of unilateral gestures. They cut it off all money. They're now giving them 3.6 billion against their 9 billion. Now, this is a kind of a thing which does not give you the confidence that things can settle down.
Right, sir. So you rightly mentioned ISKP because I remember reading a brilliant article from you on this particular matter. Sir, ISKP, what it has done, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, it has made Taliban the good guys of Afghanistan. So,
Yes.
and sir, there is a fear among the Indian strategic circles also that this ISKP, it can spill over to India's border, especially the Kashmir issue, and it can also, if I'm not wrong, can be played by the ISI to put cuts on us. So, do you think that this fear of ISKP is legitimate?
Yes, very much so. Both Al Qaeda and ISKP, we have to be very cautious and careful. And they are dangerous groups. Right now, they're also trying to dislodge the Taliban. And that is why what you said is right. The Taliban is fighting them. They have killing them some, but at the same time, there is a surprise element always in a guerrilla war, as you know. At the same time, we know that these groups, they are not standalone kind of groups. The people from Al Qaeda or different groups move from one to the another. Today they are Al Qaeda, tomorrow they become ISKP. So it's the same people. They take their connects, they take their networks and their funding possibilities and become like ISKP tomorrow because they say that the philosophy in which they were there was not acceptable to them. And that this is being played up by the ISI, as you said, and they can use it against India. This happened before, when in the 2001 after the 9/11, when all these groups moved towards the border and they started penetrating into India and Kashmir. So it is dangerous. And some of the Islamic places in India where the population is maybe a little more immune, and maybe a little more amenable to them. And that's why we have to be very careful, both internally, we have to be careful externally. And fortunately, the border has been pretty much now sealed.
Right, sir. Sir, with that, sir, we will wrap up our question answer session. And so we do have one question from our viewer. So when we had told our viewers that you will be coming on our episode, sir, we received a lot of queries and questions. And sir, we have selected the best one. And sir, it is from Shrish Bharatwaj. Sir Shrish asks, what are the steps that India should take so as to prevent West Asian countries' intervention into our internal matter? Sir, I think it is related to the recent comments by one of a political party spokesperson on a news channel. So, what are your views on this, sir?
You see that what happens is that the intervention is that there are a lot of groups in India, and they get their funding sometimes from these countries, especially Wahhabi philosophies, or some of the Turkish groups or Qataris. The countries, they think that they are giving zakat, which is like charity, and it is being fed into the extremist groups in India. So I think that there is a clear the way to deal with it is one thing. Whenever we are approving the funding of these groups and or agencies, there is a thorough check. But I think we need to be a little more careful about the credentials. And I think now under the new government, a lot of checks and balances have been put on getting the funding from outside. That is one. Secondly, these particular organizations, wherever it is a possibility of de-radicalization there, we need to do that, because see, we need to clean our own backyard in the first place. Why do people become rabid fundamentalist or extremist or terrorists? India, fortunately, I must say that even though ISIS war, when it was going on, very few Indians were actually recruited out of the 2 crore that we have. 20 crore Muslims. I mean, how many we have now? Out of them, so few were recruited. They were able to recruit them. So it is that the Indian Muslims, I would say, are not amenable to extremism and terrorism in general. There is a certain section who have an agenda, and they work in sync with these kind of groups, and some officially perpetrated by these countries. So if there is a bilateral way, we must talk to them. If it comes to our notice that there's this particular group has been fanned or funded by that government or by an official agency, we should take it up with those governments that this is not acceptable. But at the same time, we need to create our own strengthen our mechanisms, use the Islamic religious leaders, use the opportunities for employment for the youth, trying to de-radicalize them in a systematic manner. Today it is much more easier to do, also very difficult, because the same social media, the same kind of tools that are used by us to do the good things are also being used by those countries to radicalize. So those groups to radicalize. So it is an ongoing 24/7 kind of a task that needs to be conducted by our agencies.
Right, sir. Sir, as part of our think tank ISSF, sir, we do a lot of reader engagement initiatives, and sir, we invite our readers who are mostly 18 to 24-year-old people who are deeply passionate about India's foreign policy, international relations, and most of them are also preparing for the civil services. So when we invite them to put their questions to us, you will not believe this, sir. Most of them, their question is related to West Asia, not even Ukraine-Russia war, not even the Western world. So many a time, sir, we are unable to answer these questions. So do you think, sir, your new book on evolving security dynamics in West Asia and India's challenges can answer these questions?
Well, the whole purpose of this book was, I must say that when I was asked by Vivekananda Foundation to write this book, I thought I will not write it myself fully. I contributed 2 chapters and assessments and whatnot, but I requested 14 top West Asia experts from various countries, from USA, from Jordan, from Turkey, from Israel, from Indian academic institutions, professors JNU and others, and UAE. So this contribution on different dimensions in this book is written by how are the superpower politics is playing out in the region, how the intra-regional dynamic is playing out between the, so it answers quite a substantially questions. But the important part is this is available on Amazon also. You can buy from Amazon. The most important thing what I find is that I have also suggested certain policy choices to the Indian government through this book. Exactly the practical ways how we can enhance our collaboration and cooperation with West Asia. Why? West Asia is the most important region for us for many things. Energy security, we get 70%, 90% gas, oil. So, and we are going to remain dependent for at least 30 years, in my view, if we have to grow at 8 to 9%. So they are the easiest, cheapest, closest to us. They are an extended neighborhood. I have also recommended that now we have been saying Act West, Act East, Act this, the neighborhood first, this, that. Why can't we just now think of an Asia policy for India, the whole of Asia policy, and then think about specific projects in different areas? Because see, then nothing gets done. Then we need to be a greater player, because these countries in West Asia today are looking at India as a major player in the region. And therefore, we need to take on that responsibility, whether by way of being an interlocutor, by being an economic partner, by being a security partner. It is good for us also, because China is getting there very fast. Russia is coming in as America slightly disengages from the region. So we are seeing that these countries are very keen that India also should be a major partner. So I think that from our perspective, whether it's diaspora, whether it is food, fertilizer, energy security, anything, you take it, very important from our point of view. And we need to continue to work more closely. And I'm happy that the Modi government has really done a remarkable job in thrashing out the problems in our relationships with these countries.
Right, sir. So from now on, whenever we have a query from our readers on West Asia, we are going to send them the link of this book. I think so both Flipkart and Amazon provides delivery of this book, and we can also buy it directly from Vivekanand's VIF's website as well.
Not the VIF. I think you can buy it from the Pentagon Press.
Right.
They are the publishers, yes, they do it. And of course, Amazon is the best.
Right, sir.
It's the easiest to buy. A lot of my friends about it.
Right, sir. So we'll provide the link in the description to your book. And sir, what an honor and a pleasure it was for us to have you over here. And we are sure that our readers, our young readers, they will enjoy this insightful discussions. Thank you so much for your time, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure, Udyan, and all the very best to you. And I must compliment the ISSF for focusing on important key issues of in the strategic domain of the foreign policy. It's been a great pleasure talking to you today on West Asia. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.